I just pull it. Wow. Is your knife that sharp? Mine is. Today we're going to talk about sharpening stones and how I sharpen my knives. Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel, JPM.Cuisine. Today for you, as you guys already know, we're going to be talking about sharpening. And we're just going to go through some of the basic techniques that I follow. And we'll talk about some of this cool gear that I have from Mercer Culinary. So the first thing is, when we're determining whether or not we need to sharpen our knife, we're going to start with the, this is a Renaissance 8-inch. It's an X50 CR MOV 15 steel, so it's a little bit easier to sharpen for anybody who hasn't sharpened before. But we'll give it a quick test on paper, and we see it's still pretty sharp. Doesn't necessarily need to have an edge put on it, but we'll take a closer look and see on this. It could be a little bit sharper. It still has a little bit of drag in there, so we'll see how this one looks at a closer look. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that we have here. And it's really nice for Mercer to offer this, but these are what they call combination sharpening stones. And basically, the ones from Mercer come with a nice little soft rubber grip for them. And they just slide in, but they're a combination stone, meaning they've got two different grits on the stones. So this one is a 1400. This is their, what they call the starter. And then this is the 3000 that they call the finishing. So the 1000 on both of them are the same, but if you've got a situation with a knife where you have to resurface it, where you've got nicks or dings or major scratches, or chips in the edge, you're gonna start with that 300 grit or 400, and you're gonna work your way up to the 1000. And then when you wanna get the mirror edge or the good polish, you go with the 1000, 3000. They have stones that go all the way up to, I think, 10 or 12,000. But for most people in your kitchens, you're gonna be okay with up to 3,000. I think I've used up to 6,000. 6,000 is a pretty nice polish, but I think you can get away with a 3,000 and be perfectly fine. I'll leave these in the description so you can see what they are. But my typical setup is I've got a couple of towels to absorb some of the moisture, because you don't want your desk area to get wet. Most of the time I do this by the sink. But I've got a plank here of wood that I'm actually going to use. I've got a power stand here that allows you to put the stone in, and then you can actually clamp it down. It does exactly the same thing as this. This is just maybe a little bit more convenient, but this right here just allows you to get a really good lock in there, and it's got the 3 rubber grips, so you get a nice solid surface. I use this is just a cleaning water bottle. I fill it with water. This is what I use to help clean the stone in between the sharpening and when I'm switching, and also to clean off the knife. With these stones, you have to start with, I think, a 5-minute soak. So what you'll typically do is, move that, you'll start with a tub of water that you'll dunk in your stone. For me, I'm gonna use a 1000, 3000 on this because I don't have any chips, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in there. And as you put it in, you'll notice it starts to absorb very quickly. You hear that? That is how a wet stone starts to absorb the moisture. And you can see that it's coming in between the cracks between it. So right here at the seam is where you're getting a lot of the moisture to go in. And the thing about a wet stone, obviously you have to run them wet, but it's not that kind of wet stone. It's a joke. But it's basically a slurry, if you will, of different stones or different stone powder that's creating this consistent edge here. Usually takes about 5 minutes to get a full soak in. This one looks like it's doing pretty well. It's pretty quick. But one thing that you want to note is when you get done with this, you need to dry it. And typically I'll leave it on the towel on its side for at least a day or so before I put it up. Sometimes you might even see, if you don't do that, you could grow mold or things on it that you don't want. So we're gonna let that soak, and then we're gonna take a look at some of the other things I have. So again, I've got 2 different stones here that I'm using. I've got some Q-tips that I'm gonna be using to check the burr for you guys. I don't normally use them. I'll feel for the burr with my hand. And then I've got a different stone with a piece of paper wrapped around it. Typically I'll use newspaper, but this is what I use for stropping, and that's just the final touch of polishing. It gives me a flat surface, and then I've got just paper that I'll do my final strokes on, just to remove any kind of micro burrs or anything that I don't want on the edge. Some people use leather, some people use a stropping compound. For me, a little old-fashioned, I just go with whatever's simple. The most high-tech thing that I have in my entire setup is probably this, and honestly, if you buy the set from Mercer, you have a pretty good rubber grip. It just gives me a little bit more substantial surface area with this, although you've got to watch out for rust and things of that nature. There's another piece to take care of. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the knife. This is the Renaissance underneath the macro lens here, and we're just taking a look at the edge very briefly. As you can tell, it's got a nice solid edge on it. I think this is about maybe a 15 to 20 degree angle, standard type of angle for the edge, all the way down to the tip. Okay, I'll stick over here. And this is what the left-hand side of the knife looks like. I'll go ahead and take it out of the vise. We'll switch it around and look at the right-hand side. Put that in place. There we go. All right, same thing. So the right-hand side, what we're gonna do is we're just basically gonna be polishing up this edge here. Nothing too fancy, nothing too major, and I'm not gonna be profiling it or anything like that. I think the edge is perfectly fine as it is. So what we'll do is we'll start with the 1000, do a couple strokes on it and see if we can develop a burr, and we'll catch it on the macro here. Different. Okay, so we've got that soaked in pretty good. You don't see it absorbing any more water. You don't really see any kind of bubbles floating up, but typically whenever it first absorbs, it'll take a little bit, but you'll start to see just smaller bubbles start to permeate, and then larger bubbles. I think we'll be good here. The good thing about these stones is they tell you what the surface area or what the grit is on the stones themselves, so you can see them very easily. They're not on the surface, is what I mean. All right, so we'll just get our stone wet again, and we're gonna get our knife wet. Okay. Now, what people really focus on at this point is the pressure, the amount of pressure that you put onto it, and the angle of the sharpening. So obviously you can tell when it's flat, and then you just want to sort of get that feel. There's not really any kind of give or guidance that you're going to get on the correct angle. It's just a matter of trying to match where you feel like it's flush. So when you look down onto the edge, if it feels like it has a gap, then your angle is probably too shallow. So you're going to be too flat on the back. You're going to scratch up the back of your knife. And if you're too deep, it's going to remove the edge itself completely. You'll grind it flat. So it's going to take a little bit of practice. I recommend doing this with one of the Millennia knives if you've never used it. It's a much softer steel. X50 is just the next level up. So we'll just go ahead and find our angle, and I'll put either 2 or 3 fingers on the edge just to help guide, and I'm just gonna put light pressure on it, you know, maybe a couple pounds of pressure. The goal is to maintain even pressure, maintain the correct angle that whatever it is, just not necessarily correct, but consistent angle. And you want to try to use as much of the surface of the stone as possible. You'll know you're removing metal when you start to see streaks of metal in the stone itself. It's easier to determine a burr if you sharpen one side first and then the other side, and then you can see when the burr is developing. So that's what most people are going to work with. Okay, so just draw a knife. Now the thing is, if you change your angle, you can cut into the knife or into the stone, and that's not what you want to do. So if you're a novice to this, I might recommend that you do a push against the stone and not cut into it, just to make sure you don't damage your stone. So I'll show you that. So this would be the method that you're going to use. You're going to hold the same amount of pressure, and you're just going to draw your knife across the stone. As you see, this is the side that I'm not necessarily using so much. So just correct that, and just draw it across, and then until you start to feel a burr develop. Okay, so we'll go ahead and soak it a little bit more. Again, 5 minutes is what the recommendation, so I would follow that. Some people will go back and forth. If you can do that and maintain a consistent angle, that's fine. You just want to make sure that you have the same amount of pressure throughout the push or the pull. Okay, and you don't want to change the angle. Okay, and I can start to see that a burr is developing on this side. It's starting to get there, and you're just feeling this edge for a burr. And you're just checking to see if you get any kind of grittiness on this side with the Q-tip. But you're starting to, and this side should feel kind of smooth. Okay, so we'll do a few more. Okay. The cool thing about these bottles is if you squeeze them, you can put them in the big tub, and you can fill them up again. All right, so let's keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just maintaining consistency on it. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at this under the scope. So here we have the side with the that's smooth. That should not have a burr. Okay. The other side is the side with the burr. Okay. Okay, that's the side we just sharpened. And now here's the side that we're establishing the burr on. Okay, you see, smooth on this side, and the burr is on this side. Okay, smooth over on this side. Now we're going to work on this side. Okay. Get your knife wet. A lot of water. So the burr is now here. So same thing. We're gonna find the angle. Just gonna pull it. Okay. Again, if we push into our stone and we change our angle, it's a good chance that we'll cut into our stone, and then we'll ruin the surface of the stone, and we'll have to resurface it basically. So we're just gonna do a pull. So we're just gonna make sure we get the angle right. And not too much pressure. We're just gonna pull across. And you want to make sure you get all the way up to the tip too, because you want to sharpen your tip. Okay. There you go. And you're going to start to reduce the amount of pressure in order to reduce the flipping of the burr. Okay. So, since we're sharpening here, we'll go ahead and continue to work with our consistent pressure for these strokes. Okay. So I got a flat. Good. And make sure we got it consistent. Okay. And if you do end up scratching your knife because you change the angle, that's a learning experience. That's perfectly fine. It will happen. I don't anticipate anybody's first time to be perfect. Maybe even your 100th time, you may not be perfect. It's okay. We're all learning here. Okay. And that's all we're gonna do. Okay. So keep feeling. Feel smooth. Burr is developing on the other side. So just keep a few more strokes. All right, make sure you water it. Water our knife. And that's why I use multiple towels, because this just gets wet. That's what it does. Okay. And that's all we're doing. And because of the pull, sometimes your stone can move. That's why you want to make sure you have it on a nice stable surface where it's controlled. All right, so developing a nice burr over here. A little bit inconsistent on that heel, so I just need to make sure that I do a little bit better job all the way from tip to heel. Okay, it's getting better. Okay. Good. Sometimes faster strokes can allow you to maintain the angle a little bit better. So whatever works for you, just practice. And just keep practicing. If you ruin the edge, again, switch to the coarser stone, and then you can re-edge it, and then you can keep going from there. Okay. All right. I think we're good here. I'm gonna redo just a little bit of work on that tip. Go ahead and again, soak your stone, clean off the surface, clean it off. Okay, so the burr is definitely on this side now. So before we started here, now we're pulling here. Okay, I want to finish that tip. Good. Good. Okay. Good draw on that tip. Good. And the tip and the heel are probably the hardest parts to be consistent. The belly is where you're going to get most of your sharpening. So just be aware of that and just try to correct if you can. Okay. Wipe off the stone. Knife. All right, so we should have a burr that has developed on this side now. You want to take our Q-tip. Let's see if we can get, yeah. You can feel the burr. Not so much there. I need to work on that tip better. But the heel is definitely better. So if you want, you can focus on the tip and just drag it. Okay. The thing is, you want to be consistent with your stroke so you're not removing more metal here than there. So if you're not consistent in this pull, then just go ahead and focus on the tip. Okay. That's perfectly fine. Find what works for you. Don't worry about just trying to be perfect, and don't worry about trying to establish a method that somebody else has. Just do what feels right for you. Okay. Feels good. Okay, let's go ahead and check this out under the camera. So the burr is definitely on the other side. And this side is pretty smooth. Okay. Let's flip around and see if we can find the burr. Okay, so it's smooth here. This is where the burr is developed. It's just basically where it's flipped over. All right, let's go ahead and remove the burr now. Okay, so now I'm just gonna finish up through the 1000 side, and then we'll get to the 4000 side, so you can see the finish. Okay. Pretty smooth. Okay. Flip the other side. I'm just gonna keep going back and forth now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Or just keep doing this. And honestly, you can start like this. You won't be able to establish that much of a burr because you'll be constantly wearing away or sharpening the stone evenly, or sharpening the knife evenly, and I think that works perfectly fine. It's just establishing a burr is a good technique when you have a much harder knife and you don't know how many strokes it's going to take to establish a sharpen, but if you're consistent, it really doesn't matter. Okay. And this is where if you want to establish a 60-40, you start with a 400, or if you want to do a 70-30 versus a 50-50, these are a 50-50 symmetrical grind. So same angle, same pressure. All right, so this was really good. Cleaning up the burr. It really isn't establishing a burr because I'm going back and forth one-on-one. Make sure you keep your stones wet. Good. That's it. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good polish on there, at least with the 1000 that I like. And at this point, you can probably move up to the 3000 and finish your polish as you wish. Just clean off your stone. Okay. You may dunk it. Go ahead and remove it. Clean off my surface. That's why I use a towel, or do it by the sink because it's a lot of water. Okay, not much wear on these stones. Really good stones. Very flat, very nice, consistent stone. You never know what you're going to get on the internet if you buy one of the other name brands. So it's nice having a product from Mercer, something you trust in. All right, and that may be one of the issues that might solve a lot of your, if you've had issues with sharpening in the past. Maybe you're just using an inconsistent stone. You're using something maybe from the bargain bin or whatnot. And I'd recommend picking up some quality stones from Mercer then. All right, let's go ahead and look at this under the macro lens and see what we got. That surface is fairly clean and smooth. We'll run our Q-tip on it and see if we pick anything up. Nothing really at all. So it's a nice clean surface. We're going to go to the 3000, or I'm sorry, the 4000 and get a really nice polish on there. But for the most part, let's go ahead and move it up a bit so you can see. It looks really good. Nice consistent sharpen on there. Just take your time. As you see, it doesn't take very long at all. It doesn't take long at all, especially on a X50. Obviously a harder metal is going to take a little bit more time to establish that. But here, no problem. All right. So we're going to just go ahead and start to polish this. Okay. Good. Consistent. Oh, this one's really smooth. Good 4000 stone. So you're going to notice that it just feels like you're sharpening on a very smooth surface. Again, this is the 3000. I think I keep getting mixed up between the 400 and I may call it 4000, but this is a 3000 stone. It's a 1000, 3000 combo, and this is the finishing. Okay. It's not going to take very long on this at all, especially if you go back and forth. With an X50, you'll be perfectly fine. Alright. So what we got here? So lightly, gently, consistent. Use the entire stone. That feels really good. Really nice polish on it. Let's go ahead and give our stone a rinse down. I'll off some of the flecks here. Okay. Wash on the knife a bit. Okay. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Alright, let's just go ahead and light polish touch. Very light. Hardly any weight on it. Okay, very gently, very consistent. Okay. Good. And that's basically how I'm going to do my stropping strokes as well. So I think we're good. We'll go ahead and clean off our stone. And it wasn't even really like a rush job or anything. That's just how I normally sharpen. I don't strip away too much. I just get it to where I want it to be. And that's it. Okay, so now for my finishing strop, just taking paper, it's okay if it gets moist, and just kind of dry it off here. Okay. And we're just going to do the same motion. Just going to rub it against the paper. Okay. And I'm using one hand just to kind of hold the paper, but you can do this same thing. This works well with a newspaper. If I had newspaper, I would wrap it around my stone just the same. Okay, so let's see what we got. Go with the same magazine paper here. Move that out of the way for a bit. Let's just see. Feels good. Feels very good. Yeah. Very sharp. That's it, guys. Couldn't be any easier than that. Couldn't take any less time than that. I'll put this on the macro so you can see it real quick. Nice clean polish. Doesn't take much effort at all to get it right. Let me make sure that this is up a little bit. Okay, let me flip it over so you can see. Okay. There you go. Just cut into this tomato here. And push cut through tomato, very sharp. Perfect. From heel to tip. There you go. That's been the sharpening video. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Please feel free to leave me any comments. If you hate my technique, let me know. If you love my technique, let me know. If there's anything I can improve on, I'm always happy to hear. We're all learning here, especially me. So I'm always open to any kind of feedback I can get. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.